Bullets rip through the desert night, a chorus of supersonic death tearing the air apart. The ambush is perfect, a textbook killbox sprung on Phoenix platoon. Green tracers stitch the darkness, finding flesh with wet, sickening thuds. Men scream. Men die. From her position behind a shattered rock formation, Corporal Anya Sharma tracks the source. A flicker of muzzle flash, high on the ridge. The enemy commander, directing the slaughter through a pair of high-powered binoculars. She has the shot. A 1 in a million chance in this swirling chaos of sand and fear. Her rifle, a standard-issue relic she maintains with a surgeon's care, feels like an extension of her soul. But she's logistics. A glorified quartermaster. Her orders are to stay down, to call in casualties, to be invisible. Major Vance's voice, thin and reedy with panic, crackles over the comms, fall back. Full retreat. We're being overrun. But falling back is a death sentence. Anya knows it. She sees the heavy gunner pinning them down, the flanking teams moving to encircle them. Retreat means running into a wall of lead. The commander on the ridge raises a hand, signaling the final push. It's now or never. One overlooked warrior, one impossible shot. Will she fire and save them all, defying the chain of command? Or will she obey, and listen to her brothers die? Where are you watching from as this moment hangs in the balance? India, the USA, the UK, Australia? Drop your location in the comments below. Let us know where the spirit of resilience is alive and well. Like this story if you believe in the strength of the underdog, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that heroes are not defined by their rank, but by their courage. The silence in her scope is a world away from the cacophony of battle. The commander's face is clear, arrogant, framed by the crosshairs. Her finger tightens on the trigger. A breath held, a ghost of a prayer for the family she lost in a different war, a different life. A life before she became this quiet, disciplined machine. The world narrows to this single point of pressure, this one moment of defiance. The aftermath was a butcher's yard painted in moonlight and cordite. By the time the QRF arrived, the battle was over. Phoenix platoon was shattered, but not broken. The enemy had retreated, their command structure decapitated by a single, miraculous shot that had struck their leader clean through his optics. No one could explain it. The survivors, dazed and bleeding, spoke of chaos, of Major Vance's panicked retreat order, of a sudden, inexplicable shift in the firefight. Colonel Marcus Thorne, commander of the Special Operations Task Force, walked the battlefield himself. His face, a roadmap of scars and hard decisions, was unreadable under the harsh glare of the floodlights. He knelt by the enemy commander's body, studying the impossible entry wound. This wasn't luck. This was artistry. Back at the command tent, he reviewed the helmet cam footage, the comms logs. He heard Vance's squealing retreat order. He saw the panicked scramble. Then, he isolated a sound, almost lost in the gunfire. A single, distinct crack of a standard-issue rifle, followed by a moment of stunned silence from the enemy's side of the ridge. He cross-referenced the platoon roster. Corporal Anya Sharma. Logistics. A file thin on commendations but thick with discipline reports for unauthorized weapons maintenance and exceeding live-fire ammunition quotas. He found her not in the med tent, but in the armory, methodically stripping and cleaning her rifle. Her movements were fluid, economical, her knuckles raw. She didn't look up as he approached. Her eyes, haunted and deep-set, were fixed on her work. She looked less like a supply clerk and more like a predator resting after a kill. "Corporal," Thorne's voice was gravel, low and commanding. She flinched, her composure breaking for a fraction of a second, before she snapped to attention. "Sir," he gestured to the rifle. "That's a hell of a shot for a logistics specialist." Anya's gaze remained fixed on the far wall. "The wind was negligible, sir. Target was stationary for 23 seconds. It was a clean shot. She spoke of it like an equation, a simple matter of physics, not a life-ending act of war. Thorn saw past the disciplined mask. He saw the tremor in her hands, the survivor's guilt that shadowed her features. He saw the ghost of a warrior trapped in the uniform of a clerk. It was the same ghost he saw in the mirror every morning. "Major Vance is recommending you for a court-martial," Thorn stated, his eyes boring into her. Insubordination. Firing without authorization. Anya's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She had saved them, and this was her reward. She expected nothing less from a man like Vance. "His report says you jeopardized the retreat," Thorn continued, circling her slowly. "He says your reckless action could have drawn more fire on the platoon." Still, she remained silent. The accusation hung in the air, thick and poisonous. "But my eyes tell me a different story, Corporal. My eyes tell me that without that one shot, I'd be collecting dog tags from every member of Phoenix platoon, including Major Vance." He stopped in front of her. "I'm not interested in Vance's report. I'm interested in you. Report to Range 7 at 0500. Bring your weapon." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "And Sharma," he said, without looking back, "don't be late." The order was a lifeline, a puzzle, a threat. It was the first time in 3 years anyone had seen her as anything more than the quiet girl who counted bullets. The next morning, before the sun had even begun to bleach the dark desert sky, Anya stood on Range 7. The air was cold, crisp. Colonel Thorn was there, along with a mountain of a man whose uniform identified him as Sergeant First Class Davies, a seasoned operator Thorn had pulled from his own SEAL team. His face was a mask of professional skepticism. They called him Grizz. He looked at Anya like she was a clerical error he was about to correct. "Thorn didn't waste time with pleasantries. They treated you like a rookie, Sharma. A box ticker. Prove them wrong." He pointed to a series of targets set at ranges that seemed impossible for the standard rifle she held. 400 meters. 600. 1,000. "Show me the shot from last night." Wasn't a fluke. Grizz set up a spotting scope, his expression bored. He'd seen commanders get hunches before. They usually ended with wasted ammo and a quiet transfer. He expected nothing different from this slip of a woman who looked like she'd break in a strong wind. Anya said nothing. She dropped to the prone position, the movements economical, practiced. She checked the wind, her fingers trailing in the dust. She adjusted her scope, her breathing slowing until it was barely perceptible. The world fell away. There was only the rifle, the target, and the space between. The first shot was a sharp crack that echoed across the empty range. A second later, the steel target at 400 meters rang out, a perfect center punch. Grizz grunted, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Anya was already rechambering a round. The 600-meter target fell. Then the 800. Her rhythm was like a heartbeat. Inhale, exhale, squeeze. A machine of pure focus. Finally, the 1,000-meter target. A tiny speck, shimmering in the nascent dawn. For a soldier with a standard rifle and iron sights, it was a joke. For a sniper with a multi-million-dollar rifle and a team of spotters, it was a challenge. For Anya, it was just another equation. She held her breath, accounted for the Coriolis effect out of pure instinct, and fired. For 3 long seconds, there was only the whistle of the wind. Then, a faint, metallic ping drifted back to them. Grizz lowered his spotting scope, his mouth slightly agape. He looked at Thorn, then back at the small, unassuming corporal who was now calmly clearing her weapon. She hadn't just hit the target, she'd hit the half-inch bullseye painted in its center. The skepticism on his face was replaced by something else. Awe. Respect. Thorn simply nodded, a grim smile touching his lips. He had found his ghost. He had found his weapon. "Pack your gear, Corporal," he commanded, his voice resonating with a new authority. You're no longer logistics. The transfer order came down like a thunderclap. Corporal Anya Sharma was reassigned to Special Operations Task Force Alpha, effective immediately. The news sent shockwaves through the base. Major Kalen Vance was incandescent with rage. He stormed into Thorne's makeshift office, his face purple. "You can't be serious, Marcus. She's a supply clerk. She disobeyed a direct order. She belongs in the stockade, not on your varsity team." Thorne didn't look up from the satellite map he was studying. "She put down the enemy commander with a 1,000-meter shot using a service rifle, Kalen. While you were ordering a retreat that would have slaughtered your own men. My team needs shooters. Not cowards." The insult landed like a physical blow. Vance stiffened, his hand clenching into a fist. "She's a woman. Unstable. You put her in the field, and blood will be on your hands. She's a liability." Thorne finally looked up, his eyes cold steel. "She's a warrior. And you are a politician with a rank you haven't earned. Get out of my office, Major." "You are dismissed," Vance seethed, his jealousy a palpable thing. He saw Anya's elevation as a direct critique of his own command, his own manhood. He saw the respect in the eyes of the other soldiers turning from him towards her, this quiet nobody. He wouldn't stand for it. He would prove Thorne wrong. He would see her fail, even if he had to orchestrate it himself. Anya's new world was one of concrete kill houses and grueling 12-mile rucks. The men of Task Force Alpha, all seasoned operators, treated her with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. She was Thorne's project, an unknown quantity. Grizz was assigned as her partner, his official role to integrate her, his unofficial one to watch her every move. He was professional, distant. He didn't doubt her shot anymore, but a firefight wasn't a firing range. He needed to see how she handled the pressure when the targets shot back. Their first mission was a high-stakes reconnaissance op codenamed Silent Talon. They were to infiltrate a heavily fortified mountain pass to plant surveillance devices, paving the way for a future assault. It was a ghost mission. In and out, no contact. Vance, who still held operational oversight on all regional missions, had signed off on the intel. He assured them the patrol routes were predictable, the pass lightly guarded. He wished them luck with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. As the helicopter dropped them deep in enemy territory, the cold mountain air bit at Anya's exposed skin. The weight of her gear, the hushed intensity of the team, the rhythmic crunch of boots on gravel, it was a symphony of dread and purpose. Grizz moved beside her, a silent shadow. He communicated with hand signals, his eyes constantly scanning the jagged ridgelines above. "Stay sharp, Rook," he muttered, his voice a low rumble. "No room for error up here." Anya simply nodded, her focus absolute. She wasn't a rookie. She was a survivor. She knew the difference between a calculated risk and a trap. And something about this felt wrong. The intel felt too clean, too easy. The silence of the mountains felt less like peace and more like a held breath. As they navigated a narrow gorge, the trap was sprung. It wasn't a predictable patrol. It was a heavily armed ambush, waiting for them. Automatic rifle fire erupted from the cliffs above, chipping away at their cover, pinning them down in the rocky creek bed. The rounds sparked against the stones, spitting shards of granite. Vance's intel was garbage. One of the operators yelled over the din, "They knew we were coming." Grizz shoved Anya behind a large boulder as a machine gun opened up, chewing the ground where she had just been standing. "Stay down," he roared. But Anya wasn't panicking. Her mind was a cold, clear machine of tactical calculation. She saw the muzzle flashes, mapped the enemy positions. She saw the flaw in their setup, the one weak point they thought was unassailable. While the rest of the team was focused on survival, she was focused on dominance. This was her element. The chaos was her home. She was not the prey. She was the hunter. Panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. The machine gun nest had them pinned. Rounds hammered their position, forcing the elite operators to keep their heads down. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and fear. Grizz was trying to lay down covering fire, but his position was compromised. A ricochet caught him in the leg, tearing through muscle and bone. He cried out, a sharp, guttural sound of pain, and collapsed behind the rock. His blood began to pool in the dust, a dark stain spreading in the moonlight. "Grizz is hit," someone shouted. The team's medic crawled toward him, but the machine gunner had him zeroed in. It was a death sentence. Over the comms, a voice from the distant Tactical Operations Center crackled to life. It was Major Vance. "Silent Talon, this is command. Intel is bad. I repeat, intel is bad. Abort mission. Disengage and retreat to the exfil point. Acknowledge, retreat?" Anya thought, the word tasting like ash in her mouth. There was no retreat. They were caught in a kill zone. To move was to die. She saw the terror in the eyes of the young medic, the grim acceptance on the faces of the other operators. They were professionals, ready to die, but Vance's order was sentencing them to it. "Negative, command," Anya's voice cut through the static, steady and clear, laced with an authority that stunned everyone into silence. "We are not disengaging." Before anyone could respond, she moved. It wasn't a scramble, it was a fluid, predatory motion. She slithered from behind her cover to a new position, a small crevice in the rock face that offered a sliver of an angle on the machine gun nest. Grizz, gritting his teeth against the pain, watched her go. He saw the cold fire in her eyes. This wasn't the quiet logistics clerk anymore. This was a reaper. Anya raised her rifle. The nest was 300 meters up a sheer cliff face, a nearly impossible shot. She had one chance. She didn't wait for the wind to die down, she used it, aiming high and to the left, letting the gust guide the bullet. She fired once. The heavy machine gun sputtered and fell silent. A collective gasp went through the team. They stared up at the cliff, then back at her. In that moment of shocked silence, Anya was already moving again, her rifle barking twice more. Two enemy riflemen, who had been providing cover for the gunner, crumpled and fell from their perches. She had single-handedly broken the back of the ambush. "Go," she commanded over the radio, her voice ringing with newfound power. "Get Grizz. I'll cover you." The team, no longer questioning, surged into action. They grabbed the wounded sergeant and began a fighting withdrawal, with Anya providing impossibly accurate overwatch, picking off enemy fighters one by one as they tried to rally. She moved like a phantom, never staying in one spot for more than a few seconds, her rifle a metronome of death. Back at the base, the mood was electric. The survivors of Silent Talon regarded Anya with a reverence usually reserved for legends. Grizz, laid up in the med bay with a clean through and through, refused painkillers until he could speak to Thorne. "She's not a shooter, Colonel," he said, his voice raspy but firm. "She's a goddamn field commander. She saw the whole battle, sir. She ran it from a rock and a rifle. Vance ordered us to die. She ordered us to live." Thorne listened, his expression grim. He already knew. He had listened to the entire battle unfold over the command channel, his knuckles white as he heard Vance's cowardly order and then Anya's calm, defiant countermand. He walked to the debriefing room where Anya was giving her report to a collection of intelligence officers. She stood tall, her voice never wavering as she detailed the enemy's positions and tactics with chilling accuracy. She omitted any mention of Vance's order, sticking purely to the facts of the engagement. But Thorne knew the truth. And so did Vance. The major stood in the corner of the room, his face a mask of cold fury. He saw the looks of admiration from the other soldiers. He felt his own power, his own authority, slipping away, being usurped by this woman, this corporal. His jealousy had curdled into something far more dangerous, a need for her destruction. Later that night, under the cover of darkness, Vance made a call on a scrambled satellite phone. "The asset is more dangerous than we anticipated," he whispered into the receiver. "She has Thorn's ear. If they figure out our arrangement, we're both finished. The next operation needs to be final. No survivors." Thorn included, the voice on the other end, cold and accented, agreed. A plan was set in motion. The trap would be baited with the one thing Thorn couldn't resist, a chance to capture Omar al-Khaziri, the shadowy general masterminding the entire insurgency. The intel, supplied by Vance, would be perfect. The location, a remote desert compound. The window of opportunity, narrow. It was a perfect kill box, designed not just for a SEAL team, but for their commander. The final mission was codenamed Reaper's Gambit. Thorn himself would lead from a forward command post, with Anya providing overwatch from a high-altitude sniper hide. Grizz, against medical advice, insisted on being her spotter, his leg braced but his eyes sharp. "I'm not letting her go in alone," he'd told Thorn. Not with Vance's intel. The unease was a live thing, a current running through the team as they boarded the helicopters. The pieces felt too perfect, the opportunity too good to be true. Anya felt it most of all. As she settled into her hide, a rocky outcrop overlooking the sprawling compound, she scanned the terrain. It was a natural fortress, but with one glaring flaw, a single, exposed road leading away from it. An escape route? Or a channel for reinforcements? Her radio crackled. "Night Reaper, this is Archangel," Thorn's voice was calm. "We are beginning our infiltration. Do you have eyes on the target?" Anya scanned the compound with her high-powered scope. "Negative, Archangel. The compound is quiet." Too quiet. Suddenly, her blood ran cold. She saw it. A glint of light, not from inside the compound, but from the ridges surrounding it. A reflection from a scope. Then another. And another. They weren't walking into a quiet compound. They were walking into the center of a massive, coordinated ambush. "Archangel, it's a trap," she screamed into the mic. "Abort. Abort. The entire perimeter is crawling with enemy snipers. They're boxing you in." But it was too late. As if her words were the signal, the desert erupted. Explosions tore through Thorn's position. Heavy machine guns opened up from all sides. The helicopters that had dropped them off were blown out of the sky by hidden anti-aircraft batteries. They were cut off. Surrounded. "This is Archangel." Thorn's voice was strained, the sound of gunfire deafening in the background. "We're pinned down. Taking heavy casualties." Over the command channel, Major Vance's voice cut in, feigning shock. "All units, Archangel is compromised. I'm ordering a full cordon. No one goes in or out. We can't risk a wider engagement." It was a death sentence. He was sealing the tomb, leaving Thorn and his men to be annihilated, just as he had planned. Grizz looked at Anya, his face pale. "He's leaving them to die." Anya's eyes were locked on her scope. She saw the enemy forces closing in on Thorn's position. She saw the panic, the desperation. But then she saw something else. On a ridge opposite hers, she saw a lone figure raise a flare gun and fire a green flare into the sky. It was a signal. An enemy signal. She zoomed in, her heart stopping. The man holding the flare gun was Major Kalen Vance. He was directing the enemy fire. The betrayal was absolute. It was so monstrous, so complete, that for a second, her mind refused to process it. Then, the ice-cold fury set in. "Grizz," she said, her voice dangerously calm. "Patch me into the global command channel." "Unencrypted." "Anya, what are you doing?" he asked, his eyes wide with alarm. "That will go out to everyone on this continent." "Just do it," she commanded. He complied, his fingers flying across his comms unit. A moment later, he nodded. Anya took a deep breath. "This is Corporal Anya Sharma, call sign Night Reaper," she broadcast, her voice steady and hard as diamond. "Colonel Thorne and Task Force Alpha are in a kill box at Grid 4-7-9er. The ambush was orchestrated by Major Kalen Vance, who is on site, coordinating with enemy forces. I have visual confirmation." A shocked silence descended over the airwaves. She had just committed career suicide, accusing a superior officer of high treason on an open channel. But she didn't care. "I am disregarding the Major's cordon," she continued, her voice ringing with defiance. "I am engaging the enemy. Any friendly assets in the area, I am requesting immediate fire support on my mark." She didn't wait for a reply. She settled her crosshairs on an enemy mortar team that was bracketing Thorne's position and squeezed the trigger. 1 down. Then a sniper. 2. Then a heavy gunner. 3. She became a machine of righteous fury. Grizz called out targets, his voice a low, steady rhythm in her ear. "RPG, East Ridge. 2 men, 200 meters. The shot was off before he finished the sentence. She fired and moved, a ghost on the mountain, drawing fire away from Thorne, breaking the enemy's coordination with every perfectly placed round. On the opposite ridge, Vance stared in disbelief as his perfect trap fell apart. He saw his own forces being decimated by an unseen angel of death. He screamed into his radio for them to find the sniper, to kill her. But it was too late. Anya had his position dialed in. Her final shot wasn't for him. It was for the enemy general, Al-Khaziri, who had emerged from his command bunker to see why his victory was being stolen from him. The bullet crossed 2 kilometers of open desert, a messenger of fate. The general fell. The enemy, their leadership shattered twice by the same ghost, broke and fled. As dawn broke, painting the blood-soaked sand in hues of orange and pink, the battlefield fell silent. Reinforcements, spurred by Anya's desperate broadcast, finally arrived to secure the area and rescue the battered survivors of Task Force Alpha. Thorne, his arm in a makeshift sling and a fresh gash across his temple, found her and Grizz still in their hide, surrounded by spent casings. He looked at Anya, his face etched with exhaustion, pain, and a profound, overwhelming respect. He didn't speak for a long moment. He simply stared at the corporal who had defied orders, exposed a traitor, and saved them all. The rookie. The logistics clerk. The girl they had all underestimated. He finally unclipped the radio from his vest. His voice, raw and powerful, broadcast across the same global channel she had used. It was heard by generals and privates alike. "This is Colonel Thorne," he announced, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Major Vance is a traitor, apprehended and in custody. Corporal Sharma acted with valor above and beyond the call of duty. Her actions today saved my life and the lives of my men." He paused, then looked directly at Anya, his eyes locking with hers. There was a new beginning in that gaze, a new order of things. He keyed the mic again, his words becoming a legend that would be told for years to come in the barracks and briefing rooms. "All units, be advised. Effective immediately, Corporal Sharma is no longer corporal. Command just came through. Her new call sign is official." He stood a little straighter, his voice filled with a pride that was almost paternal. He wasn't speaking to a subordinate anymore. He was speaking to an equal. A leader. A hero. He raised his radio, his voice a gravelly command that echoed across the desert. "Night Reaper, move out."